Today we're going to discuss how to create a daily writing habit so that by the end of this video you know exactly how to go about building the habit of writing every day. What's going on? I'm John, and I'm actually uniquely qualified to talk about this topic because long before I ever started thinking about writing, I was into learning about productivity, creating habits, and getting stuff done. So if you're struggling to create the habit of writing every day, you are in the right place. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about the basics of habit formation. There are plenty of books out there about this, but I'm going to refer to one of the most popular ones, Atomic Habits by James Clear. In this book, James Clear breaks down habits into 4 distinct phases. The cue, in which something triggers you to remember this behavior. The craving, in which you desire an emotional state change that you expect will happen as a result of this behavior. The response, where you actually execute the behavior itself. And then lastly, the reward, where you get that emotional state change that you were expecting, and this causes your brain to wire for doing this behavior more in the future because you know that you can get that positive response from doing it. So how does this actually relate to creating a habit? Well, in order to create a habit, you need to make sure all of these 4 phases are present and are satisfied. So let's go through each one by one. First, you want to make sure that the cue is obvious. You need to make sure it's obvious because in our world of almost infinite distraction, it can be really easy to forget to do something. So if you make it obvious, it's impossible to forget. Next, you want to make sure it's attractive. You want to make sure it's clear to you what sort of emotional state change, what reward you're going to be getting by executing this habit. And third, you want to make sure this behavior is easy. And this relates very strongly to what we talked about in the second phase. We want to make sure it's attractive. And this attraction needs to be greater than the resistance that we have toward doing this behavior. So by making it easier, you make it effortless to do. And lastly, we want to make sure this behavior is satisfying. We want it to feel good so that it cements this behavior in our brain as desirable and makes us more likely to do it again. So now that we understand how this applies to creating habits more generally, let's talk about how we can apply this to creating a daily writing habit. First, we want to make it obvious to do. So for example, in my life, I get up and I do a morning routine in the morning, and then as soon as I finish that, I come back and I write. This is actually a little bit of a more advanced topic called habit chaining, but the importance of this example is how obvious it is to me that after my morning routine, I write. You want to do the same thing and make it as obvious as you can for yourself. And one way that you can do this is to pick a specific time that you're going to write in. You can put alerts on your phone for your calendar and have notifications leading up to that time every single day. You can also even use an alarm so that it's impossible to ignore the blaring from your phone when this time is coming up. Whatever it is, you just want to make it very obvious to you when it is time for you to write. And one way that I really favor is doing writing as your first task. Because, when you start the rest of your day, you have all these competing desires, things are getting in your way, there's all these distractions, your willpower is being drained as the day goes on, and if you have your writing session later in the day, it can be hard to sit down and do this hard creative work when all you really want to do is just watch some Netflix or something. So I personally favor putting writing as your first thing in the day. But maybe you've tried that and it doesn't really work that well for you. And if that's the case, just make sure that whatever you're using as a cue for this writing, make sure it is very obvious. Next, we need to make sure writing is attractive to us. A lot of times we have this desire to write already, but that's not going to be there every single day. Some days, for whatever reason, you're just not going to feel like writing. And that is where we can lean on our habits of making it attractive to write even on those days. People often talk about listening to music, putting on candles to set the mood, or doing a lot of other little things to make it more enjoyable to actually write. But I'm not going to talk about those. I think those are fine, but I think there's more powerful ways to really motivate yourself to do this habit, to do this writing every day. First, pay attention to the goal that you're striving for. Why do you care about writing this book? Why is it important to you? Get yourself excited about writing this, because doing that and getting this excitement will make it much more easy for you to follow through. Second, leverage identity. One statement that I tell myself all the time is that I'm the type of person who does and believes that which moves me toward my goals. Since one of my goals is to finish writing my book, in order to be the type of person that I'm telling myself I am, I have to write. And because of this, I've literally lost track of the number of days I've been writing for in a row. I wrote on Thanksgiving, on Christmas, on New Year's, when we lost internet. It doesn't matter. That's the power of identity. So decide on the type of person that you want to be and start repeating that to yourself all the time. You can literally tell yourself, I'm the type of person who writes every single day. And honestly, if you're not writing every single day yet, this will feel false at first. But the point is not to lie to yourself. The point is that your brain rewires to make the thoughts that you think more often more efficient to think. So this thought literally will become easier to think, and by repeating this identity to yourself over and over and over again, it will start to become self-evident. It will become the truth. I hope you understand how powerful this is, and I just want to remind you right now to smash that like button if you're enjoying this video so that YouTube knows to share with other writers like you. Third, make it easy. This is where a ton of people go wrong, so pay attention. You want to make sure this behavior is easy enough that you can guarantee it even on a bad day. You could literally start off with something as simple as, I sit down at my computer and I open up Microsoft Word. You don't even have to write yet. If you sit down and you open up Word and you actually want to write, that's great, but you don't have to. The point is setting a baseline habit that's easy enough for you to do no matter what, that is almost effortless. And once you've developed the habit of sitting down at your computer and opening up Word, you can scale it up more easily to writing for 5 minutes, then 10, then 20, and up until you're hitting a daily target that allows you to move toward your writing goals. Next, you want to make sure that you're making this behavior satisfying. Whatever habit you start off with, you want to reward yourself for accomplishing it. You want to be able to feel good about accomplishing it. A good way to do this is to track the task and how many days you've gone in a row of doing it. Being able to check this off and see your streak grow larger and larger every single day lets you see the progress that you're making toward establishing this habit into your life. And you're showing yourself that you can trust yourself. You said you were going to do this habit, and you've done it for this many days, and that inherently feels good. Now, the hard part about this is balancing the difficulty. Because, for example, if you just sat down on your computer and opened up Word for months, and that was the only thing that you were doing, eventually that wouldn't feel good anymore. It wouldn't feel like you're making progress anymore. And you need to scale up the difficulty in a way that feels manageable and that you can still be proud of for doing. One way that you can do this is by using tiers. For example, the good, better, best tiers. Your good could literally just be, I sit down on my computer and I open up Word every single day. And if you do that, you're already establishing this habit, you're making it more ingrained into your life, and you should reward yourself for that. You should feel good for that. But if you sit down and you want to do a little bit more, you can go to the next tier. You can go to the better tier. Maybe you write for 5 minutes. Or if you want to even do more, maybe you can go to the next tier, the best tier, and you write for 10 minutes. Whatever you decide, the point is to provide that flexibility so that you can go higher, and then you can start to see like where your limits actually lie. Maybe you find out that you're often hitting that better tier every single day. So maybe that becomes your new good, and you raise the best to something even higher. And by using these tiers, you can easily scale up the difficulty over time without stretching yourself too far and losing your streak. For me, I've settled on 40 minutes as my minimum. Some days I can write for more than an hour, but other days 40 minutes is all I've got. And even though 40 minutes doesn't really seem like a lot, it's enough to make consistent progress over time, and the progress every single day is what really matters in the long term. This process is the key to establishing a daily writing habit. It's how I've gone for more than 100 days without ever missing a single day. And I know that if you apply this, you'll be able to do the same. And that is exactly what this channel is all about. I'm working on improving my skills as a writer, and I'm sharing my journey and what I'm learning along the way with you. So if you're having trouble getting yourself to write every day, seriously apply what I just talked about, and definitely leave some comments if you have any questions so that I can get back to you and help you along with this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. I just like spittled a ton. I hope the camera doesn't see that. If you did, then this will be in the video as well. Oh God. Okay, I'll record one more time just in case.